Let me ask you something, friend. What if I told you that 80% of what you're doing right now isn't moving the needle? That most of your stress, most of your wasted time, even most of your income loss comes from the wrong 80%. And here's the kicker. Just 20% of your efforts, your habits, your decisions are producing most of your results. Now that's not a theory. That's not a guess. That's a law of life. It shows up in business. It shows up in relationships. It shows up in health, wealth, and happiness. But here's the tragedy. Most people never take the time to figure out which 20% is making the difference, and they stay stuck doing everything, instead of doing the few right things. That's the secret the successful have figured out. Not more effort, just better effort. Not more hours, just better use of them. In this program, I'm going to walk you through how to identify your vital few, how to eliminate the noise, and how to focus your life on what actually works. Because here's the truth. Success doesn't go to the busiest person. It goes to the one who learns to focus, to leverage, to let go of the rest. So if you're ready to work smarter, live lighter, and achieve more by doing less, then you've just found the right message. Let's begin. The law of leverage. Small inputs, big returns. Let me tell you, friends, success doesn't always require more hours, more hustle, more pushing, more grinding. No. In fact, if you're always pushing harder and still getting nowhere, you're not missing effort, you're missing leverage. Now, what is leverage? It's the simple idea that a little applied in the right place can move a lot. Think about this. A man with a long enough lever can lift a boulder that weighs more than his entire body. Because it's not about force, it's about focus. It's not about sweat, it's about strategy. That's the power of the 80-20th rule. You don't need to do everything. You need to do the few things that matter most. The busy trap versus the productive path. Here's the truth. Most people are busy, but not effective. They're chasing crumbs, while a feast is sitting right under their nose. They work 10 hours a day, answer emails, attend meetings, check off to-do lists, but at the end of the week, they've moved an inch, exhausted, but unchanged. That's because they're applying effort without aim. Let me give it to you straight. 10% of your tasks produce 90% of your progress. But you've got to pause long enough to figure out which 10% it is. Start asking the right questions. If you want the law of leverage to work in your life, you've got to ask what's really producing the results. Not what's keeping you busy, not what feels productive, but what's actually moving you forward. Ask yourself, what activities bring the most return? What relationships create the greatest value? What decisions open the biggest doors? Find those, then multiply them. And here's the other side, the tough side. You've got to get rid of the rest. Yes, even the comfortable stuff, even the old routines that don't serve you anymore. Because success doesn't just come from doing more right things. It also comes from doing fewer wrong things. Examples that prove the principle. You ever notice how in a company, 20% of the employees do 80% of the work? Or how in sales, a few clients generate most of the revenue? Same goes for life. A few key habits, a few key people, a few key choices are doing the heavy lifting. So don't spend your time fixing everything. Spend it finding what already works and doing more of that. That's leverage. Small hinges swing big doors. You don't need to overhaul your life today. Just find the small hinge that swings the big door. That one conversation you've been avoiding. That one skill you've been neglecting. That one habit that keeps breaking your momentum. Fix that, and you might see a chain reaction of results. That's the law of leverage. Not just working harder, but working wiser. Final words, make the shift. So here's what I'm saying to you. If you want more results, you don't need more chaos. You need more clarity. You need to ask better questions. And you need the courage to walk away from the unimportant. Because a person with focus, a person with clarity, a person who understands leverage, they can accomplish more in 3 focused hours than the average person does in 3 distracted days. Don't just swing wildly. Aim, leverage, and hit the mark. That's how success is built. That's how legacies are written. That's the 80-20th way. Let's move forward and start multiplying what works. Identify the vital few. Eliminate the trivial many. Now listen carefully. Success is not about doing everything right. It's about doing the right few things with excellence, with intention, and with consistency. That's the secret. You see, most people are drowning in too much. Too many choices. Too many tasks, too many voices telling them what to do, where to go, who to be. But here's the truth. Not everything matters. In fact, most things don't. I'll say that again. Most things don't matter. Now, this isn't just an idea. It's a principle. It's called the Pareto Principle, also known as the 80-20th rule. It says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. So what does that mean for you? It means that out of the 100 things you're doing, only a small handful are creating the real progress, the real growth, the real impact. The rest, just noise. The power of clarity. So here's your job. Find the vital few and eliminate the trivial many. Now I know what you're thinking, but Jim, how do I know what's vital? Good question. You know what's vital by looking at the fruit. Ask yourself, what are the few actions, the few relationships, the few commitments that produce real results, real movement, real return, real momentum? Maybe it's a single client who brings in most of your income. Maybe it's a 30-minute morning routine that sets the tone for your whole day. Maybe it's one powerful habit, like reading, planning, or exercising, that lifts everything else. That's your 20%. That's your vital few. You've got to let go. Now here's the hard part. Once you find the vital few, you've got to be bold enough to walk away from the rest. That's right. The emails that steal your morning, the distractions that look urgent but go nowhere, the meetings that could have been a sentence, the habits that feel comfortable but produce nothing. You've got to let them go. Because here's the truth. You can't have clarity if you keep feeding clutter. And I'll tell you something else. You won't miss the trivial. You'll wonder why you ever gave it so much time in the first place. Where to start? Audit your life. Let me give you a simple exercise. Do an audit. That's right. A personal audit. Take one full week and track it. Your time, your energy, your money, your conversations. Then ask, where's the value? Where's the waste? You'll be surprised. You'll see just how much you've been doing that leads absolutely nowhere. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that's when real change begins. The courage to simplify. Success takes vision, yes, but it also takes courage. The courage to simplify, to subtract, to say no to good, so you can say yes to great. Remember, complexity kills clarity, and clarity is the engine of success. So don't be afraid to clean house. Clear your calendar, trim your tasks, cut the dead weight. Not because you're lazy, but because you're smart. The successful don't do more, they do less, better. Final words, protect the 20%. Let me leave you with this. Once you find your vital few, protect it, guard it like treasure. Build your day around it, design your habits to support it. Because in the end, it's not the 100 things you try, it's the 5 things you master. And that, my friend, is how you separate the average from the extraordinary. Find your few, eliminate the rest, multiply your life. Let's keep going. The 20% habits that build 80% of your character. Let me tell you something that will change your life if you truly get it. Your habits shape your character, and your character shapes your destiny. You don't decide your future, you decide your habits, and your habits decide your future. Now here's where it gets powerful. You don't need 100 habits to build a great life. You need just a few. The vital 20% practiced consistently with intention. That's the 80-20th rule in action. 20% of your habits determine 80% of who you become. The question is, are those few habits lifting you or limiting you? Your character is built daily, not in a day. You see, character isn't something you're born with. It's something you build day by day, decision by decision, habit by habit. Nobody wakes up with integrity, discipline, courage, clarity, and confidence. They're earned through the small, consistent actions that most people ignore. That's why I tell people, if you want to change your life, don't start with the big stuff. Start with the daily stuff, the little disciplines, the quiet victories, the private wins. Those are the foundation stones of a great life. Find the habits that lift everything else. Let me give you some examples of high-leverage habits, the kind that make everything else better. Morning clarity. Taking 10 to 15 minutes every morning to review your goals, plan your priorities, and set your intentions. That one habit can rescue your entire day from chaos. 2. Daily learning. Read 10 pages of a good book. Watch something that feeds your mind. Stretch your thinking, just a little each day. And after a year, you'll have transformed your mind. 3. Physical movement. Not for vanity, but for vitality. A walk, a workout, a stretch. You move the body, and the mind gets clearer too. 4. Journaling. Write down what you're learning. Reflect. Gain insight from your own life. Because what you don't track, you tend to forget. 5. Keeping your word. When you say you'll do something, do it. Even if it's small. Especially when it's small. That builds integrity, and integrity builds trust. First with others, and then with yourself. Most people have habits, but not high-yield habits. Now here's the problem. Everyone has habits, but not everyone has the right ones. Some people wake up late, scroll endlessly, skip planning, complain without acting, and react to the world instead of directing their day. And then they wonder why their life feels stuck. It's not fate. It's not bad luck. It's habit drift. And if you don't design your habits with intention, they'll be shaped by default. But once you identify your 20%, once you intentionally choose the habits that shape your best self, your confidence, your character, and your results all begin to multiply. Consistency beats intensity. Here's something else you've got to remember. It's not what you do once in a while that matters. It's what you do every day. Don't try to overhaul your life in a weekend. Start small. Do it daily. Keep going. Water doesn't cut rock with pressure. It cuts it with persistence. That's how habits work. Final words. You are what you repeat. So what are the habits that are quietly building your life, and which ones are silently stealing from it? Be honest. Be clear. Be ruthless if you have to. Because at the end of the day, your success won't come from luck, or from a sudden breakthrough, or even from a perfect plan. It'll come from a small set of habits, done daily, that build the kind of person who attracts, sustains, and multiplies success. If you want to transform your life, start by transforming your day, because success doesn't just show up at your door. It's built, brick, by what you do when no one's watching. So build wisely, start now, and don't stop. Relationships. Who are your 20% people? Now here's a question I want you to think about. Who's in your circle? Not just who you know, not just who follows you, or smiles at you, but who actually shapes you. Because here's a truth I learned early in life, and it never failed me. You become the average of the people you spend the most time with. That's not philosophy. That's not theory. That's reality. If you hang around 5 broke people, chances are you'll be number 6. If you surround yourself with 5 negative people, you'll start talking like them, thinking like them, living like them. But here's the good news. If you connect with 5 people who are growing, building, learning, and aiming higher, you won't have to try to rise. You'll be pulled up. The 80-20th of relationships. Now let's bring in the 80-20th rule again. 80% of the influence in your life comes from about 20% of the people around you. Just a few voices, a few personalities, a few relationships. Those are the ones steering your ship. Those are the ones steering your ship. Those are the ones steering your ship. So the question is, are they steering you toward the life you want, or the life you settled for? Not every relationship is equal. Not every voice deserves volume, and not every person should have access to your energy, your time, or your decisions. Who are your multipliers? Let's talk about your 20% people, your multipliers. These are the ones who bring out your best. They challenge you when you start coasting. They believe in your vision, even when you forget it yourself. They're not always the loudest, but their presence multiplies your clarity, your confidence, and your courage. When you're around them, you think bigger, you plan better, you take action with more purpose. These people are rare. They're not always in your family, not always in your friend list. But if you find one, honor them. If you find 2 or 3, protect them like treasure. Who are your drainers? Now let's be honest. Some people don't multiply your energy. They drain it. They gossip. They complain. They stay stuck. And they want you to stay stuck too. They criticize ambition, mock growth, and secretly hope you'll shrink back to make them feel more comfortable. These are your trivial many. And the longer you hold on to them, the harder it becomes to rise. Let me be clear. You don't need to hate them. You don't need to argue with them. But you do need to limit access. Not because you're arrogant, but because you're aware. Because your environment will shape your evolution. And proximity is power. Audit your circle, just like we audited your habits. Now it's time to audit your circle. Ask yourself, who in my life calls me higher? Who challenges my thinking, not just agrees with me? Who adds energy to my goals, instead of draining it? Who am I becoming by spending time with this person? And here's the big one. If I spent the next 5 years with this person, would I grow or shrink? Answer those honestly, and you'll know exactly who belongs in your vital few. Be someone's 20%. Now let me flip the script. We always ask, who are my 20% people? But here's the better question. Am I someone's 20%? Do you inspire growth in others? Do you multiply energy or drain it? Do you call others higher just by how you live? See, we attract what we are. So if you want better people in your life, Become the kind of person they want to be around. Be a person of vision, a person of discipline, a person who adds value, not drama. When you raise your standard, your circle adjusts automatically. Final words: choose your circle like your future depends on it. Because it does. The right people will change your pace. They'll expand your thinking. They'll accelerate your growth. And the wrong people, they'll anchor you to average while telling you it's just life. So choose your 20% wisely. Invest in those relationships. And release the rest with peace, not guilt. Because who you walk with will decide where you end up. Walk with purpose. Choose with wisdom. And never forget, your future travels with your circle. Let's keep moving forward. The money principle. Focus on profitable action. Let's talk about money. Not in theory, not in hype, but in truth. Clear, clean, and actionable. Because here's something I learned early in life. It's not just about how hard you work. It's about how wisely you work. You can swing the hammer all day, but if you're building the wrong house, all you've got at the end is sweat and regret. So here's the key: profitable action. Not just action, profitable action. Because just like time, money responds to focus. And just like energy, money flows where attention goes. Effort is not the same as return. Let me say it plainly. Effort and income are not the same thing. Some people work 12 hours a day and still struggle. Others work 4 hours with precision, and they thrive. Why? Because one is doing what feels productive, while the other is doing what actually produces results. This is where the 80-20th rule comes into play again, and it's loud and clear when it comes to money. 80% of your income is likely coming from 20% of your activity. Your job is to find that 20% and double down. Find your financial multipliers. Ask yourself, what few skills bring in most of your income? What few clients bring the most profit? What products or services get the highest return for the time spent? Once you know the answer, that's your gold mine. That's where you build. That's where you refine. That's where you multiply. Most people never get rich because they spend 80% of their time on things that don't pay. They scroll, they tinker, they rearrange the desk, they answer every email like it's a lifeline. But the wealthy, they focus on leverage. They know where the value lives. They build pipelines, not puddles. Learn to say no to what doesn't pay. Here's a truth that might sting. You've got to say no to more opportunities, not yes. Why? Because not every good idea is a profitable one. And not every request deserves your attention. Let me put it like this. If you're trying to do everything, you'll end up doing nothing that moves you forward. You've got to guard your time like money. You've got to guard your energy like gold. And you've got to guard your focus like it's your future. Because it is. Not all work pays the same. Let me give you a simple example. Let's say you spend 5 hours designing a fancy logo, but only 1 hour making a sales call that could bring in a $10,000 client. Which one was more profitable? You tell me. The world will reward you, not for how busy you are, but for how valuable your work is. So don't fall in love with tasks. Fall in love with outcomes. Don't focus on activity. Focus on results. Track the ROI of your effort. Here's a good habit to build. Every week, ask yourself, what actions made me money? What actions moved me closer to financial freedom? Then do more of that, and just as importantly, ask, what actions drained my time and paid me nothing? Then do less of that. This simple awareness can shift your entire financial life, because clarity brings power, and power brings profit. Final words: focus beats frenzy. So here's the truth. Money follows value, and value comes from focused action, not scattered action, not hopeful action, but strategic, intentional, and profit-centered action. This is not about greed, it's about stewardship, managing your effort, managing your time, managing your gifts. Don't trade your hours for pennies. Trade your wisdom for wealth. Don't chase money. Build value, and let money chase you. Because in the end, it's not the busiest who win. It's the one who knows exactly where to aim. So aim well, work smart, and let every action move you closer to the life you were designed for. Let's keep going. The energy audit. What drains versus what drives. Let me give it to you straight. Time management is good, but energy management, that's where the power is. Because what good is a 12-hour day if you're only showing up with 3 hours of focus, 2 hours of discipline, and half a tank of motivation? You see, success doesn't just require time, it requires vitality, clarity, intensity, presence. You can't do big things with low energy. You can't build momentum if you're constantly dragging your feet. And you can't lead others if you're always trying to wake yourself up. Your energy is your engine. Let me ask you, what would change in your life if you had double the energy you have right now? Double the drive, double the clarity, double the consistency. You'd get more done in a week than some do in a month. Because energy isn't just physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's spiritual. And here's the kicker, you can have a full schedule and still feel empty. Because you're not just running out of time, you're running out of charge. The 80-20th rule of energy, just like with time and money, 80% of your energy is drained by 20% of your life. It might be a habit, a person, a project, a mindset, even your environment. So here's your job, audit your energy, what gives you power and what pulls the plug. If you want to perform at a high level, you've got to be as intentional with your energy budget as you are with your bank account. What drains you? Start here. Ask yourself, what drains me? It could be scrolling social media for an hour and feeling empty afterward. Conversations that go in circles but lead nowhere. Saying yes when your heart is saying no. Eating junk that gives a quick high and a long crash. Hanging around complainers who suck the life out of the room. The list is different for everyone, but the result is the same. You're running on fumes. And if you don't identify those drains, they'll keep bleeding you dry. What drives you? Now let's shift gears. Ask what fuels me. What activities recharge your spirit? What routines set you up for clarity? What environments bring out your best? What people lift your thinking, not lower it? Maybe it's a 20-minute walk. Maybe it's writing, reading, praying, or planning your day before the world wakes up. Maybe it's talking with someone who makes you think bigger. That's your charging station. Find it, build it, guard it. Because the better you protect your energy, the more power you bring to every room, every task, every challenge. Stop leaking power. Now listen, it's not always about adding more fuel. Sometimes it's about fixing the leaks. You don't need more coffee. You need to cut the chaos. You don't need another motivational speech. You need to stop saying yes to what you should have ended last year. Here's what I've learned. When you subtract the things that drain you, you naturally multiply the things that drive you. That's the law of energy. Simple, powerful, overlooked. Design an energy-rich life. Now don't wait for motivation to show up. Design your day to produce energy. Start your mornings with intention, not reaction. Schedule breaks that restore, not distract. Eat for fuel, not for fatigue. Move your body, even a little, every day. Limit your exposure to negativity, like it's toxic waste. Because it is. When you do this, you stop dragging through your day and start driving it. Final words: protect the flame. Let me leave you with this. You are a torch, not a candle. You're here to light things up, not burn out. But a torch must be fed, a flame must be protected, and energy must be stewarded, not squandered. So do your audit. Eliminate the drains, multiply the drives. Design a life where your best self is fully charged, fully focused, and fully present. Because the world doesn't need a tired version of you. It needs a fired up, fully alive, purpose-filled you. Let's keep going. The 20% that creates 80% of stress, eliminate it. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt overwhelmed and couldn't figure out why? The schedule's full, the mind's noisy, the day feels heavy, and no matter what you do, you're stuck in stress mode. Now listen, that feeling, it's not because you're doing too much, it's because you're carrying too many wrong things. Here's what I've learned, 80% of your stress comes from just 20% of your life. A handful of habits, a couple of conversations, a few unfinished tasks, a decision you keep avoiding, that's it. And once you identify those few stress points, you can break free from the cycle that's stealing your peace, your progress, and your power. Stress is a signal, listen to it. Stress isn't your enemy, it's your messenger. It's saying something's out of alignment, something's overdue, something you're tolerating needs to end. But instead of listening to it, most people numb it. They scroll it away, they eat it away, they binge it away, and when the noise fades, the stress returns, louder than before. Don't silence the signal, study it, because if you ignore it, it compounds, and eventually, it costs you more than you can afford. Find the few, face them. Here's your next move. Audit your stress. Ask, what's the one conversation I keep avoiding? What's the task that's been sitting on my mind like a weight? Who's the person that causes me tension every time they call? What do I keep saying yes to, even though it's draining me? Now look at the answers. you'll see a pattern. The same names, the same issues, the same situations. That's your stress. 20%. Don't manage it. Eliminate it. Don't confuse chaos with commitment. Now hear me on this. Some people confuse chaos with being committed. They think if their life's not stressful, they must not be trying hard enough. But success doesn't require burnout. It requires boundaries. It's not heroic to be stressed all the time. It's not noble to be overcommitted. It's not admirable to run on fumes. You weren't made to survive life. You were made to lead it. So if something's stealing your peace, it's costing you too much. Cut the noise. Keep the core. You don't need to change everything. You just need to change the right few things. Cancel the unnecessary meeting. Stop chasing the wrong client. Say no to the extra project you took out of guilt, not growth. Let go of the relationship you've outgrown. Listen, you are not obligated to stay loyal to what's breaking you. Give yourself permission to clean up, to cut loose, to walk lighter, because clarity brings calm, and simplicity invites strength. Peace is a productivity tool. Let me tell you something most people don't realize. Peace is profitable. Peace is powerful. Peace is not laziness. It's leverage. When your mind is calm, your decisions are sharper, your focus is deeper, your energy is higher, and your results multiply. That's why this chapter matters, because eliminating stress doesn't just feel better, it makes you better. Final words. Don't let the few ruin the many. So here's the bottom line. Don't let a few things ruin everything. Don't let one delay ruin your day. Don't let one critic ruin your confidence. Don't let one person steal your peace. It's time to stop tolerating tension. Stop accepting overwhelm as normal. And stop carrying stress that was never meant to be yours. Do the audit. Face the few. Clear the clutter. Protect your peace like it's the engine of your life. Because it is. Because here's the truth. When the stress goes, the real you shows. Let's keep going. Focus equals power. Train your mind to ignore the noise. Let me tell you something you already know, but maybe need to hear again. We live in a noisy world, and if you don't train your focus, the world will train your distraction. Now let me say it even stronger. You will never build a powerful life with a scattered mind. You will never build momentum chasing everything. You can't win if you can't lock in. Because in this new world, focus is a superpower. Not loud, not flashy, but rare and powerful. The myth of multitasking. Now let's kill a lie right now. Multitasking doesn't make you productive. It makes you forgetful. It makes you sloppy. It makes you tired. Multitasking is just doing multiple things poorly at the same time and calling it progress. You ever feel like you worked all day but accomplished nothing? That's not a time problem. That's a focus problem. When your attention is fractured, your results are fragile. But when your mind is fully here, fully locked in, you get more done in an hour than most do in a day. Focus is a muscle. Train it. Here's the good news. Focus is not a talent. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it gets stronger the more you train it. So how do you train your focus? You practice doing one thing until it's done. You remove the distractions before you start, not after. You set boundaries on your time, your space, your mind. Because here's the truth. A focused mind is a force of nature. It cuts through clutter. It sees what others miss. It finishes what others abandon. And that's the kind of mind you need to build a life that matters. Silence the world. Hear yourself. You ever notice how the world always has something to say? Buzz, preem, scroll like, swipe, every second. A new headline, a new voice, a new distraction. But here's the tragedy. Most people are so busy reacting to the world, they never hear their own thoughts. Let that sink in. And here's the truth. You can't build a clear life on a noisy foundation. So you've got to turn it off, log out, silence the phone, sit with your own thoughts again, because clarity lives in silence. Vision lives in stillness. Focus lives where the noise dies. The 80-20th rule of attention. You know it by now. The 80-20th rule, well, here's how it applies to focus. 80% of your best work will come from 20% of your focused time. Not your long days, but your locked-in hours. Not your busy schedule, but your undistracted attention. So protect those blocks of deep focus like gold. No distractions, no split energy, just you and the mission. Because one solid hour of focused effort can solve a problem that's been stressing you out for weeks. Build a focus ritual. Let me give you something practical. A focus ritual. Before you start something important, clear your desk, silence your devices, close all unused tabs, take a breath, set an intention, then go deep, without interruption, for 30, 60, or 90 minutes. Do this daily, and you'll train your brain to stop chasing butterflies and start hunting results. Final words. Aim before you act. Let me leave you with this. Don't be proud of motion. Be proud of precision. You don't get rewarded for being busy. You get rewarded for being effective. So slow down to aim, then act with power. That's the rhythm of success. Because the world will always try to scatter your mind. But you're learning to ignore the noise and lock in on what matters. And that, my friend, is the power of focus. Let's keep going. The 80/20ths weekly review. Track what actually works. Let me tell you something most people never do. They don't pause to reflect. They don't measure. They don't review. They just keep moving, week after week, hoping the motion becomes progress. But here's what I learned early. You can't improve what you don't track. And you can't grow what you don't review. You don't need more hustle. You need more awareness. And that's what the 80/20ths weekly review is all about. It's about taking just a little time to find the few things that are working and eliminate the many things that are not. The week tells the truth. The week never lies. It's your scoreboard. It shows your focus. It reveals your priorities. It exposes your patterns. And if you'll stop long enough to ask the right questions, the answers will transform your life. See, some people journal feelings. That's fine. But I suggest you track results. Because the world doesn't pay for intentions. It pays for execution. And your review tells you if you're actually executing or just spinning in circles. The 80/20ths review process. Let's keep this simple. Every week, carve out 15 to 30 minutes. Quiet space. No phone. Just you, a pen, and your week in review. And ask yourself, 1, what worked? What small handful of actions moved the needle? What gave you momentum? What tasks or decisions created a clear return? That's your 20%. Double down on it next week. 2. What didn't? What drained your time, energy, or clarity? What took hours and returned nothing? What felt urgent but produced no progress? That's your trivial many. Cut it, reduce it, eliminate it. 3. What needs to be adjusted? Where are you slipping? Where are you stuck? What do you need to stop tolerating? This isn't about shame. It's about strategy. Get honest. Get clear. Then get better. Don't confuse activity with achievement. I'll say it again. Activity is not the same as achievement. Don't be the person who confuses busy with productive. You can fill every hour and accomplish nothing. Or you can focus a few hours and change your life. The difference? Awareness. And awareness comes from review. The power of pattern recognition. Now here's where it gets exciting. When you review consistently, you start to see patterns. Patterns of success. Patterns of distraction. Patterns of breakthrough. And once you recognize the pattern, you can replicate it. That's how you go from accidental wins to intentional success. You stop relying on motivation and start building a system. Small tweaks, massive impact. Let me remind you, you're not looking for a complete overhaul every week. You're looking for tiny tweaks, small corrections, micro wins, because those small adjustments, they add up. Over time, they create separation. Separation creates advantage, and advantage leads to greatness. Final words, measure to multiply. So here's the big truth. If you don't measure it, you can't master it. You don't rise by chance. You rise by choice. And choice is guided by clarity. So review your week. Find the winners. Drop the losers. Build on the strong. Trim the weak. It's not about being perfect. It's about being intentional. Because the 80/20ths rule is not just for business. It's for everything. So don't guess. No, don't hope. Measure. And don't repeat what doesn't work. Refine it. Replace it, and rise. Let's finish strong. Multiply the 20% and let the rest fade. Let me give it to you straight. Once you've found what works, do more of it. That's it. That's the game. That's the edge. That's the multiplier. Most people find their 20% and then forget it. They drift right back into distractions. They chase the next thing. They scatter their energy again and wonder why nothing sticks. But the wise, the strategic, they don't add more chaos. They multiply what already works. That's how winners separate themselves. Not by doing everything, but by doing the right things repeatedly and relentlessly. If it works, scale it. Let's talk simple strategy. If you've found the few habits that bring clarity, double down on them. If you've identified the top clients who bring value, serve them better. Upsell. Deepen the relationship. If one product, one move, one message is creating results, don't reinvent the wheel. Build a fleet with that wheel. That's not playing small, that's playing smart. Because success isn't always about invention. Sometimes it's about repetition with refinement. Don't get bored with what works. Now here's the danger. Success is quiet. Repetition is boring. You know what's exciting? New projects, new platforms, new ideas, new. And guess what? That's how people stay broke. Because every time they build momentum, they hit reset in the name of excitement. Let me say it clearly. Just because something feels boring doesn't mean it's broken. If it works, work it. If it pays, grow it. If it lifts you, protect it. Let the rest fade. Now let's flip the coin. If it's not producing results, it doesn't deserve your time. Let it fade. That social media strategy that hasn't worked in a year, let it go. That business partnership that drains you, let it go. That commitment you took out of guilt, not growth, let it go. That outdated habit you're still holding on to out of comfort, let it go. Not everything deserves to be maintained. Some things need to be released to make room for what matters. Every yes to something trivial is a no to something transformational. Choose wisely. Build systems around the 20%. Now let's get even more practical. Don't just repeat the 20%, systematize it, automate it, document it, schedule it. Build your routines, your calendar, and your decisions around it. Turn your 20% into a default, not a decision. Because the more you systemize your strengths, the more you multiply your results without multiplying your stress. That's the secret of high performers. They don't just do more, they do less, better. The compound effect of mastery. Let me leave you with a big idea. Mastery is just multiplication of the meaningful. It's not magic, it's not luck, it's doing the same right thing long enough that it becomes a force. Small inputs, done well, done consistently. That's how you build momentum. That's how you create a life you don't have to escape from. That's how you become the person people look up to. Because you weren't chasing shiny things. You were stacking solid ones. Final words: protect the core. Let go of the clutter. So here's your mission. Identify the 20% that brings results. Multiply it, scale it, protect it. Let the other 80% fade, shrink, or disappear. Because you don't need to do more. You need to do more of what matters. That's the difference between effort and excellence. And when you live by this principle, you stop being overwhelmed, and you start being unstoppable. Multiply the core, let the rest fade, and step fully into the life you were meant to build. Let's move to the conclusion. The power of less, designed for more. Let me leave you with something powerful, something simple, but life-changing. Less isn't lack, less isn't weakness. Less, when chosen wisely, is pure strength. Because here's what the 80-20th rule teaches us. You don't need everything. You don't need everyone. You don't need to chase every opportunity, say yes to every request, or solve every problem. You need the few things that work, and the wisdom to let go of the rest. Success isn't built by addition, it's built by selection. The average life is overcrowded. Too much noise. Too many obligations. Too many distractions. But the successful, they simplify. They identify what moves the needle. They subtract what holds them back. They multiply what works, and ignore what doesn't. That's not chance. That's not luck. That's design. And that design starts with a choice. To live by intention, not reaction. To build with clarity, not clutter. To pursue excellence, not everything. Let the rule guide you. Here's your compass. If it moves you forward, do more of it. If it drains, distracts, or delays, let it fade. That applies to your tasks, your habits, your relationships, your goals, your business, your thoughts. The 80-20th rule isn't just a business concept. It's a way of life. It invites you to live light, to focus deep, and to move fast in the right direction. Because you don't get more out of life by doing more. You get more by doing less of what doesn't matter. You were not meant for mediocrity. Let me remind you, you were not born to live a scattered life. You were not designed to be busy and burned out. You were not created to carry everything and go nowhere. You were made for impact, for clarity, for purpose, for results. And the path to that life, it starts by saying, I will no longer do what doesn't work. I will no longer carry what doesn't grow me. I will find the few, and I will give them everything. Final words: simplify to multiply. So what's the final takeaway? Simplify to multiply. Cut the noise. Focus the fire. Design a life where every move matters. Because a life of excellence isn't built by force. It's built by focus.